I'm Danielle Smith, guest hosting for Common Sense Calgary, and we are talking to ward candidates in the upcoming Calgary Civic Campaign. Our next guest is Craig Chandler, who is candidate for Ward 12. Craig, thanks so much for being with me.
Oh, thanks for having me on.
All right, you have put your name forward for public office many times before, so you are certainly a known quantity, but tell us, why is it that you want to represent Ward 12 in this race?
Well, specifically, in the past, I've run campaigns for city councilors, and I've seen how things are done. I actually did a stint working for Peter DeMong when I ran his first campaign at City Hall, just to see how it worked. And when I found out how it worked, I thought, I'm going to eventually run one day, because I don't like how it operates. And I just think we are lacking a business mentality at City Hall in a very big way. And I think with my experience both in the private sector with various different corporations, boards that I've served on, with the Progressive Group for Independent Business and other things, I think it's time to have somebody who signed the front of a check, not just the back of one, go manage the corporation called the City of Calgary, rather than just have people who, taught at university and then this is the best job they've ever had. I think we need experience, especially post-COVID. We're going to need people who understand budgets don't balance themselves.
Okay, let's talk about Ward 12 in particular, because I know that your predecessor, Shane Keating, he spent a lot of time talking about the Green Line and getting that project advanced. I want to ask you, generally speaking, do you think he chose the right priorities for that ward, or would you have done something different?
I know, because I've door knocked already over 8,000 doors, that people do want the Green Line, but they don't want it the way it is. They'd like the South Leg, because we're broke. They'd like to see the Green Line go down to the largest hospital in Alberta, down in Seaton, but they don't want the whole fancy schmancy way that Nenshi was promoting it, with underground tunnels and everything else, because we're broke. And but a lot of people, when they bought here, in Mackenzie Town and New Brighton and Copperfield and Mahogany and all the areas, it was in their real estate transaction documents that there was going to be a Green Line. So people expected it. So they do want it, but they want fiscal responsibility. They unfortunately didn't like how this current city council has been voting on tax hikes. That seems to be the biggest issue at the doors. The fact that taxes went up almost 100% and over the past 10 years, and 7.5% during a pandemic, which is a little tone deaf. I don't know who raises taxes during a pandemic. It's really tone deaf. But there's serious frustration about accountability, too many in-camera meetings, transparency. But they do want a more business approach. I mean, the fact that our local pub in Mackenzie Town is spending like $10,000 a month in business property taxes, even before they meet payroll, is astounding to people when I tell them exactly how bad it is for business in the city. And I've been doing exit interviews. I've been talking to people from Amazon, been talking to people who are moving to Houston. I'm like, why are you guys leaving? And they're saying, Craig, because your municipal taxation is very high, and your city council is really not the type of people that want to give us tax abatements or tax breaks in this bad economy when we're trying to bring this many jobs. So I think we need people who understand business, that don't just have theories or just ideologues. We actually need people who have experience. If you want to know what an experience looks like, Danielle, you can look at Mr. Dress Up in Ottawa, because that's exactly what you're going to get.
Less than talk. You've put a lot on the table. So let me just get you to drill down a little bit on a couple of those things. So if the Green Line was promised, they've already assembled the land for it. If they've got a good plan, if it goes as far as it's supposed to, but you've heard that Transportation Minister Rick McIver said it's got to connect in to the existing system. How would you do that?
I'm looking at various different options. I'm looking to, I've even talked to some developers who own land on designated right-of-ways and stuff, just to see exactly what we do. But I don't think, having the Green Line go all the way up north and everywhere else is the way people want it. So we can tie it in. It's a matter of where, and we need to have that conversation. No one expected COVID. So because of COVID, every single level of government seems to be broke. And now they're looking for different ways of doing things. So I say we do the Green Line, we look at what we have, and we try to make something work. But the Green Line, we need money. And I think one of the biggest ways we can get money, and I've said this to people at the door, and I've lobbied for this forever. Ironically, Brian Kanye was the only one who listened to me when he hired Mercer and Company to do an organizational review when he was as mayor. But I've really pushed for a full forensic audit of every department in the city of Calgary to ascertain where we can make some cuts. I'm finding some departments that have 8 or 9 managers and no one under them. So there's a lot of problems. And if we do that organization review, find out where we're at, we're going to be a little more wiser to figure out exactly, what we can do. And in our own homes, we talk to financial planners to help us out and things along those lines. But every time Nenshi and his cohorts of socialists want to look at making some cuts, they ask the bureaucrats to do it. I mean, they're not going to do that. They come back and say, well, we got to cut firefighters and we got to defund the police. No one wants that, especially in Ward 12. It's a very conservative area. Rick McIver's the MLA. Tanya Furr is one of the ones that connected. I mean, it's Matt Jones. It's very conservative. And, people are looking for someone who's going to bring in different things. And they're also frustrated with politicians in general. Like, one of the things I'm running on is I want the Municipal Act changed so that I can only serve 2 terms. Then I got to go back to the private sector to be useful again. And that's really what we need to do. Term limits are important. It's one of my biggest things I say at the door every time. And I talk about the organization too.
If there were term limits, would there be anyone else who wouldn't be eligible to run this time around?
Well, if there's term limits, then she wouldn't be running. I mean, even my good friend Demong wouldn't be running. But, there's lots of people who wouldn't be running at this time. And, it was PGIB, our business group, that pushed to turn it from 3 years to 4 years. And we lobbied heavily to get that done way back too. And I think now it's time to get individuals like myself, rather than just complaining, in the background and getting people elected. I just think I can go in there and get some things done myself a little more effectively. And there's just so many different things we need to look at. We need to look at the pensions. I mean, and what?
Okay, hold on. let me go back, because there's a few other things that I wanted to ask you about. Let me start that question again. So let's go back and talk about taxes, because you had mentioned the business load of taxes in particular when you were talking about the pub in Mackenzie Town. Give us some idea of how you would address that problem, because this is the challenge. Is there has been a tax shift proposed, but do you solve the problem of overtaxing the business community by shifting the burden over to the residential community? How do you see it?
I don't think that's the solution. I think one of the biggest aspects for us to find savings is to do this detailed organizational review. We have almost 1.4 million people. We need to really look at where our finances are. I mean, the private sector does this on a regular basis, where they look to see where they can streamline, and we haven't done that. The only solution with the city councilor seems to be, okay, well, we got to raise taxes again. That's not a very good idea. And what I'm going to do as a city councilor is I'm gonna work with other individuals, like my good friend Marcel Latouche and others, and try to get an alternative budget proposed and adopted each time, compared to some of the stuff that the bureaucrats put forward. I think our job as the elected directors of the corporation of the city of Calgary should be to tell the bureaucrats what to do, not the other way around. And it seems the tail's wagging the dog at City Hall. So I think we need people who are going to go in there with a business mindset. Okay, where are the savings? How do we redistribute this? But forcing people to pay more on their homes when they don't have a job doesn't make any sense to me. So I think we really need to consult with the business community. And as you know, Danielle, I've been consulting with the business community in the city since 1995. So I understand a lot of their concerns and their issues, and that's why I've had it. I'm just sick and tired of yelling at my TV and radio, which is why I decided to run. And why municipal politics? It's because it's the level of government we can actually change the easiest and the most.
Well, in theory, that is true. But there was a reformer who got elected to council last time around. He's now put his name forward to run for mayor. And he had a difficult time, I would say, getting enough votes in order to push through some of the ideas that he has, which parallel many of your ideas. So how would you manage that relationship on council? Because you do need to have 8 votes to get anything done.
Well, believe it or not, I actually... and this might surprise you. One of my best friends is GC, Kara. He's a socialist. He calls me, I call him my pet commie, and he calls me his pet right winger. I think it's because I've been so familiar with those individuals, and I did work at City Hall beforehand, and they got to know a side of me that a lot of people didn't realize. I'm actually a nice guy. And, I think it's about having that business perspective. I mean, Jeremy's great. He's got my vote for mayor. However, I just think, as a younger individual, he doesn't have that same sort of, I guess you can say, business finesse that I've had being in the business community for some time. And, I've had to work with people on the other side of the aisle. That's just how it is. You're not going to get stuff done unless you're willing to do that. And I would rather debate on merit and principle and show these guys, look, here's where we can get what you want, but here's where we can make some savings. And lay that out. I just think, because of my business background, I understand those big budgets. I've sat on some very large corporate boards. I have governance experience. I think that's important. So I'm not coming in inexperienced, if you will. I understand.
Okay. So fair enough. So you feel you can build enough of a coalition on council in order to get the agenda put through. But I think what we've observed is there are a lot of ideas that seem to generate from the administration. I'm assuming that you're following this guidebook for great communities, which seems to have come out of the blue. And that seems to happen a lot, that there's a lot of fully formed policies that get presented to council with a mad rush and pressure to try to just approve them. And then you're kind of locked in. Give me your perspective on first of all, the process that we used to get to this point where everybody is now debating this new plan. And would you do anything differently?
Yeah, I would. When I'm talking to people at the doors and they're saying to me, Craig's the first time I've ever heard of it. And that's a lot of citizens saying that. Obviously, we didn't consult very well in any way, shape, or form. I also wouldn't let the bureaucrats hold me hostage. I would just say, no, we need to, Sean Chu was right, Farkas was right, Andre Chabot was talking about it in the media too. We should postpone this until the next council gets in so we can get into it deeper and we can consult the people a little more effectively. I feel it's being railroaded. I don't think from what I understand of it, and I don't understand it 100% yet, but I'm going through it all. It doesn't seem like a very good idea, and I know people in Ward 12 don't like it; they oppose it. So
you would probably have a lot of homes in your riding that are zoned as R1, and I think that's where a lot of the conflict comes. And so let's talk sort of more broadly about the issue of development, because I think we all we want Calgary to be a great place for young families to move to have affordable housing. The multifamily homes is often a way for low-income individuals to be able to get a toehold into the housing market. So I think that the idea behind it is to try to allow for more of that type of development. But how do you balance that out? When you do new suburban development, then you're also facing issues of additional infrastructure that you need to build. When you're doing densification, there's the potential that you can save some money by building up instead of out. When you're having to make those kind of balances, what do you think the right solution is?
Well, quite frankly, and I'm not like other city councilors to say I'm in this for just Calgary. I'm actually, if it was just about Calgary, we would pick the top 14 councillors, but we specifically have wards. So, my job is to be their representative city council rather than city council's representative to them. And if you've driven down and I know you have because of where you got to go home sometimes, if you've driven down my neck of the woods, even Cranston, on the right before you hit the Whitten, it's there, or you look to your left and you got Seton. I mean, it's growing, and people live in the suburbs for a reason. I chose to live down in Mackenzie Town because I don't like inner city living. I just don't. And the majority of people here have that certain mindset. So, I mean, if we're willing to, pay a little more for the home or whatever, I mean, maybe that's what we do. We can talk about various options, but I don't think anyone in Mackenzie Town wants to see, high-rise units, sticking up in the middle of nowhere when they chose to be here for totally different reasons than that. So, I mean, it's not instant rice. I don't have all the solutions. I just know I'm coming at this with a business mindset, and I think that's important in it all. But the people in Ward 12 are concerned about taxes, so we can't raise taxes to adjust that. I think we did. That's the whole thing. This is rushed. We need to talk about this more. Somebody may come up with some really good ideas, and I'm going, that's great. I'm going to consult my constituents on that. And the one thing I'm going to do to consult my constituents is to do something like Peter Demong would always do. Here's an example. Before he voted on the airport tunnel, we did a robocall to 13,000 of his people because of data we got from elections. And 11,000 of them voted and told him to vote for the airport tunnel because they'd rather him spend the money now than later because it'd be more expensive. So I would rather consult my constituents after I have a full grasp and understanding, and talking to developers, which I'm starting to do so, and talking to other individuals to say, hey, what do you think? What's a good solution? How do we make stuff work? But we're not. We're rushing it, and we don't know what it's going to look like. So I think it's a big mistake, and I'm disappointed with all the people who voted to do this without giving us an opportunity to have this debate. You and I are debating more about this issue than I.
Well, you may have a chance to revisit it. I don't know. I mean, when things get locked in, it can be hard to bring them back. But let's move on to the next topic, because again, we'll deal with the issue of infrastructure, because the city is undertaking a number of capital projects, the Green Line being one that we've talked about, but also the event center in conjunction with the Calgary Flames, the BMO Center expansion, the Arts Commons transformation, and the Foothills Fieldhouse. Now, when they were put forward, they were voted on against the advice of the CFO, who said that all four of them couldn't be afforded at the same time. So let me put it to you. Do you think there's an opportunity to revisit any of these projects, and would you? Or do you think they all should go ahead?
Well, I really think we should revisit everything, because of COVID came and the world is different. I mean, no one saw that coming. Did you see that coming? No one did, right? So, I mean, we're in a different reality. Do I value the Calgary Flames? I'm a season tickets holder. Of course I do. Do I think we could do something, in conjunction with them? Absolutely. But the way everything is set up now, I don't know. We really need to revisit a lot of things now that in the post-COVID world, and that's just common sense to do. I mean, we need a common sense Calgary, and I think we need a common sense council to pull that off. So, yeah, no, things should be revisited. I really do. And, of course, there's going to be things like, the art budget gone, that sort of stuff. I mean, that's silly. I mean, it is really silly that we spend anything on blue rings or that stuff that's going out to COP, whatever they call that. Like, I don't know what it is, but you've driven by it. So, no, we need to make some cuts. We need to revisit things, and we need to put the brakes on the guidebook. So,
let me ask you a few more specific questions about how you might approach it. For instance, I mean, you've talked about management layers in administration. What do you think about looking at the wages of frontline workers? Because wages make up 55% of the total budget. Do you think you can get there by finding cuts just by looking at the management layers, or do you think you'd need to be looking at changing the wage and benefits and pension packages?
A third of all city bureaucrats. A third of all city hall bureaucrats make over $100,000 a year. And that same job in the private sector is roughly about $60,000. I've been talking to some companies. I'm coming out with a detailed platform, 35 pages, called Solutions for Growing Calgary, which I address pretty much every issue you're going to ask me in more detail. And one of the things I'm doing, I've been talking to municipalities in the United States, a few of them. Everyone knows I have a family in Florida, so I've been discussing with people there as well. There's some municipalities that are saying to city hall bureaucrats, look, we're broke. You can keep your job, but you're going to have to take a pay cut. And I think it's time we start talking in that manner. Right now, we've had increases in the pandemic, provincially for bureaucrats, and even recently in the city. That's not the time. I mean, talk about tone deaf again. There is so many people in Ward 12 that are mortgage payments away from losing their homes. I've challenged politicians to come out and door knock. In fact, I've asked people, when's the last time you've seen a politician? They're like, I can't even remember ever seeing one. So the reality is we need to have better conversations, and we need to include the people in it too. There can be some great ideas if you open it up and let people know, hey, what do you think we can do here? What do you think we can do there? But also, I think we need city councilors who are like myself that will actually look at other municipalities and see what's working elsewhere. I mean, there is a whole world out there. And the fact that we're not doing that is disappointing. And
it's interesting. You said something that since you're looking at American jurisdictions at the municipal level often have a different tax mix for how they fund their operations. I don't think it's that unusual to have, for instance, sales taxes at the local level or other types of tax revenue. And I know that the city has often put forward city charter ideas that would include different tax measures. The argument they make is that they're overly reliant on property taxes and would like to diversify the revenue stream. I have a feeling I know what you're going to answer when I ask you, would you support additional taxation powers for the municipality? But I wonder if, because of what you've looked at in the US, would it make any sense to have that conversation, even if it means reducing property taxes, to have a different type of tax brought in?
Yeah, I'm always happy to have a conversation about reducing taxation, but if the conversation doesn't end in that, I'm going to oppose it 100%. I mean, we're already taxed to death by 3 levels of government. It's getting to a point so bad in Canada. I'm surprised we just don't give all our money to the government, and they can just give it back to us in a check, like CERB or something. Oh wait, that's already happening. I mean, no. I do not believe in increased taxation at all. In fact, in my literature that's going out, I talk about all of the different taxes that this has just hit every door in Ward 12 just recently. So I've talked about all the different taxes they're trying to bring in, everything from a liquors tax to this tax to that tax. And no, I really don't think we have a revenue problem. I think we have a spending problem. And you and I both know, Danielle, that governments in this province, no matter what level you're at, whether it's the school board, whether it's the municipality, whether it's the province, they always seem to have a spending problem. And a lot of it, needs to be having the conversations on exactly, okay, what's the public sector making? Who's going to talk to the unions? How are we going to do things? And I think we need some individuals like myself who are a tad feisty and aren't afraid of a little controversy and getting things done for their constituents.
You brought it up. You do have a little controversy in your history. And so for people who are looking at you thinking that you might be too combative or too strident based on some of the things that they've seen of you in the past, have you mellowed in your older age?
Yeah, it's a great, because sometimes when I talk to people, I said, was that post rehab or pre rehab? Because I went off the reservation when my wife left me and the kids, and I became a single dad, and I developed a massive cocaine problem. And I went to rehab. I reached out to my parents and I said, I need help. And I became a fundamentally different guy because I'm not abusing anymore. I've learned a lot of great techniques on when I was in rehab as well, with anger management to everything else. So I've said to people, and I'm like, what issue do you want to address? And they said, well, what are your views on this? I said, nothing. I said, the great thing about the city hall is I don't believe there should be social agendas there in any way, shape, or form. I'm sick and tired of people actually bringing that into the equation. And I said, if I was a little meaner and rough, it's probably because, I was having a tough time in life, and I was. So do I think I've mellowed? Yeah, I'm 50 years old now. I have I've raised a 17 and 18-year-old kid by myself. I've established several businesses that are flourishing very well. In fact, I'm probably one of the few running for city council that I can say I'm taking a pay cut, because it's not a lot of money compared to what I'm getting through PGIB and everything else. So yeah, I'm doing it for the right reasons. My heart's in the right place. I love my community. I love Calgary. I'm an avid Alberta First person. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, and I think people do mature.
It's very honest of you to share that, because Calgary is dealing as well with a drug addiction problem. Does your experience give you any particular insights on how that should be managed?
Yeah, I was actually writing Tyler in the very beginning, and here's the thing. So I go to Narcotics Anonymous, and I said to Tyler, I said, let me get this straight. You have the liquor stores open, the weed stores open, but I can't go to my Narcotics Anonymous meeting. So yeah, I do have a different perspective altogether on that. So, I did get them to be labeled as essential services so that could happen again. And I do. Addiction's a very, I know it's a choice initially, but it's a very tough thing that if you don't really reach out and ask for help and have the infrastructure there. And I think Kenny's done a good job with funding rehab centers and things along those lines, better than any other government has. But yeah, I do have a different perspective. And in PGIB, we've had people lose their businesses so much that some of them, we had, I think, 7 or 8 people commit suicide that own businesses in PGIB throughout the pandemic. Because I didn't know this until I was told this by a widow, but apparently in Canada, you can pay all your life insurance and everything as long as you've paid it for 2-3 years straight. You can kill yourself and still get paid out. So that was happening, and I haven't heard that. I think the pandemic lockdown has been more deadly than the virus itself. And, I would really like to get all of us back to work. I would really like to end the lockdown completely. I mean, I think we know what to do. Social distancing, which I always do when I door knock. I ring the doorbell, then I step back, about 8 feet. I leave the thing in the mailbox and I say, Craig Chandler, right there, I left you some information, hoping to be your city councilor in Ward 12. And people appreciate it. Mm-hmm. They actually, no one's freaking out. People, remember, I've knocked over 8,000 doors, and I've had probably 10 people who give me a hard time. And you know what? When I go look their name up on Facebook or something, they're socialists. They're working for like the Calgarians for a Progressive Future or something else. And I'm like, okay, whatever. But the majority of people want to get back to work. The majority of people want this addressed, and the majority of people want, the crisis with drugs and alcohol. It's not just that. I mean, I haven't done studies, Danielle, and I don't know if you know about it, but I'm pretty sure liquor sales went through the roof during COVID.
I think you're right on that. So when you talk about people wanting to get the groove back and get Calgary back hopping again and businesses open again, how do you do that? What do you think are the essential elements of it? Is downtown ever going to be as vibrant as it was pre-COVID and pre-crash in the energy sector?
If you look at Edmonton's vacancy rate, which is lower than ours, you look at Lethbridge and Medicine Hat, where some municipalities are lowering taxes and starting to boom. You look at St. Albert, you look at other places. I really am frustrated with the Nanshan City Council blaming other levels of government for their problems. I think a lot of the problem, and I talked to Amazon about this. They said, look, we got a tax abatement from New Jersey. That's why we're there. So I think we need different mindset, like mine, a business mindset, to say, okay, what can we do to get you here? What can we do to create more jobs? And if we create more jobs and work out some deals with different businesses, we're going to see the downtown flourish again. Whether it's
so hold on a second. You said work out deals with certain businesses, because I think a lot of businesses are always happy to take some kind of subsidy or special break in order to relocate. And we had $100 million go to Calgary Economic Development to do that. That seems a little offside with the type of approach that I would expect you to take. So maybe I should just get you to clarify about what it is you think you can offer businesses to relocate to Calgary, or do you support giving targeted support?
Well, I do support giving someone a targeted support. I'd like to make taxes generally lower all around, just so that we can, attract everybody. But, whether it's the tech sector or, movie studios or whatever, people have different needs, and it's true. And if somebody's going to come like Amazon and say, look, we'll give you 20,000 jobs. We just want a little break, for when we move there. Okay. So I look at all the economic development that would occur from people going out to lunch, people going out to dinner, people being downtown, jobs being created, income taxes that are coming into the provincial government and the federal government, and other things. Clearly, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And the past 10 years, we've seen terrible results. So I'm open to those discussions. It is, and people need to remember too, this isn't just the government. The corporation of the city of Calgary is a business, and it needs to be run more like a business. And that means we do things a little differently than the provincial government would do or the federal government would do. And I do think we need to have those conversations. I would have not opposed a tax abatement for Amazon if that's what they wanted. Yeah.
All right. Let me do a sort of a rapid fire bunch of questions at the end here. We know that snow removal was a big issue in December. Was it a big issue in your community, and what would you do differently?
Well, the amount of swearing I get, because I purposely, when I door knock, I start off with, "Hi, it's Craig Chandler, hoping to be your city councilor. I'm just here to see if you're happy with the constant tax hikes and the fact that they don't clear your streets." and if they say yes, I know they're a liberal, so I leave. But if they say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sick," then you hear there's a lot of expletives that comes out of people's mouths when you talk about the snow removal. Heck, I live in Prestwick, and right outside my place right now, I mean, there was cars that were stuck for 3 days. We were all helping each other out. It was ridiculous. So our taxes are going up, price of my home's going down, but the services are even worse than they were before. So I didn't see one plow the entire winter, not one. go through my neighborhood. Not even once. So
what do you think it is? Do you think it's a lack of budgeting or lack of priority or not enough contractors? What do you think is going on?
So I believe government should be a facilitator of services, not necessarily a provider of services. So we need to have conversations, because I've looked down in the U.S., what about private garbage options? What about other things like that? We have to talk about things. We can't just say no and just be blindly ideological both ways. We need to see what's going to work and be a little more pragmatic. And I think that's how we're going to get good governance. So yeah, there's different things we can do. We need to have that conversation. I mean, do we have the conversation of doing private snow removal or whatever? I don't know, because they're not doing it now. So what's the difference of talking about it when they're not doing it at all?
So it sounds to me like that thought would carry over to a discussion about private garbage collection, potentially private golf course running. Any other areas that you think might be open to private sector delivery?
Well, yeah, I don't know. I've had the conversation with one person at the door the other day where I thought about it. I don't know the numbers are accurate, but this is what they were saying to me. Craig, do you think our local government-owned utility, NMAX, should be buying LDCs throughout the United States? I said, no, I don't. They said, well, they are. They're using your tax dollars, and they're not even mitigating risk. They're risking. And Craig, what if we sold NMAX like for $3.8 billion, put $1 billion in infrastructure, $1.8 billion into a fund, so we didn't have to increase taxes again and invest it, and $1 billion to cover debt problems we have. I said, that's a great thing to discuss.
So let me ask you the question. You've already talked about the defund the police approach. You're 100% opposed. You've already talked about public art. You're opposed. Let me ask you about the plebiscites, though, because there's a plebiscite on fluoride that is going forward, and then there was a proposed plebiscite on reducing speed limits that is not going forward. Give me an idea. Do you think the council made the right decision on doing it that way, or would you have done it a little bit differently if you did that?
I don't believe in reintroducing fluoride for financial reasons, because to retrofit the city, it's going to cost us about $28 million. No one's talking about that. They're not talking about the funding. So I'm opposed on that alone. Where are we going to get an extra $28 million? We're just magically printing money now? No, we don't have it. So it shouldn't even be on the ballot. And everyone's going to take this approach. If it's for health or it's not, brush your teeth, for goodness sakes. I mean, I do. Make sure your kids do. Be a good parent. Brush your teeth. There's lots of municipalities around the world that don't have fluoride, and I don't think it's a science issue that we should be talking about. It's fiscal, and we need to be fiscally responsible, and I don't think our city council is.
And as for the speed limits?
Oh, for goodness sakes. I mean, here's what I think we should do. Why don't we have bylaw officers writing tickets rather than raising the speed limits, because lowering the speed limits, because people don't listen to it anyways. Those who are going to break the law are going to break the law. What you need to do is have cops fighting crimes and bylaw officers writing tickets, and I think that would solve the problem. If you want to condition people into speed limits, I don't even object. And I know some people say, Craig, I can't believe you'll say this, but really, if you don't like photo radar, don't speed. It's just a tax because you did. If you're inconvenient or something like that, there's other ways to do things. I don't think lowering the speed limit is going to do a thing. It's not going to change anything. It made everyone feel better, but how much money did it cost us to change all the signs down the entire city? Again, they're not fiscally responsible. There's so many different things, like downtown. I like Jeremy, but he was the one that pushed to get all French signs down in Mission. Well, at first it was going to be funded by the city, and then I lobbied to make sure that didn't happen. So then it got changed, and the community association can do it. But then in the end, I said to Jeremy, well, do you realize that city union workers are the other ones who can change the sign? So who's going to pay for that? Then they ended up paying for that. But I don't think people, they don't, I guess it's because they're not used to 5-year budgets. I have to, in my business, do a 5-year short-term, long-term cash flow business plan. But these guys do 1 year, and they seem to be reactionary rather than bringing things forward. And I think that needs to change. We need people who can think.
All right. Well, thank you so much for spending so much time with us today. I sure appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Danielle. I appreciate it. And you guys take care, and happy capitalism.
You got it. That is Craig Chandler, your candidate for Ward 12.